Battlegrounds where legends reign. Aussie gridiron pride unchained. Hear the thunder, feel the flame. Touchdowns and tackles, ain't no shame in the Aussie gridiron game. From Brisbane light to Perth so bold.
G'day Aussie Gridiron fans and welcome to the AGN Superbowl recap / season recap show for the Aussie Gridiron Network. You are, of course, listening to all of us insane individuals who have been doing this for an entire season for $0, just the absolute love of it. And we are back once more to talk all kinds of football, wrap up a Super Bowl that was a bit of a downer of a game in a way, but not so much if you were a Philly fan or a fan of rioting in the streets, taking down lampposts, pissing on your mate's girlfriend, any of that kind of stuff. So, you know, if you're a fan of any of that stuff, I didn't even go to the horse shit one this time, but there it is. If you're a fan of any of that, it was a great night. If you're a fan of the of Kermit the Frog and the Chiefs, not so great a night. So we'll talk about all that. If you're just a fan of football, it was football. And you got drunk and ate some wings and maybe a hot dog and watched a bit of football. So I'm babbling already. We are literally a minute into the podcast. So I better introduce everybody so everybody else can babble. Let's go around the room. He is the other host with the most on the AGN side. He's our dude for fantasy. He's the guy who backs me up while I back him up. It is Matty C.
Let's just be honest with everyone. I hold the clipboard for you, mate. But it's good to be back.
It's good to know what you guys do on a Saturday night, backing each other up too.
Correct.
Everyone the magic. Everyone the magic.
The other host in the AGN stable and a sometimes podcast voice, and he has been with us for all of the playoffs, is, of course, the man behind Aussie Gridiron Today and everything local, which you should definitely always check out. And Pastry Press NFL is, of course, Manjot Melly. How you going, brother?
Going well, a bit sad. Let me be honest. Last show of the year for the Aussie Grind Network in terms of the playoff series. But with that, me going from a listener to a content creator. So there's going to be some stuff coming out the next week for me while you boys take a bit of a break, of course. Well-earned break for you boys.
All right, the G'day Gridiron boys. We've got the second best analyst in all of Australia. The second best NFL analyst. He's, of course, the number one O lineman in our hearts, though, Matty, isn't he? His name is.
There you go. You got back on track.
Good. Like Mandel said, a bit upset now that the season's over, but has been a good season, and the Chiefs have finally been taken down. So it was a good day. It was a very good day. Even seeing the Eagles win, but anyway, someone has to lose, so you just focus on that.
Well, the 49ers fans are both sad in the room today, and that's no surprise to any of us, and especially to our one Aussie Rams fan. You're not sad, are you, Isaac?
Not at all. Let's get those Rams down here, baby.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, last but very not least, the biggest man in any room he occupies. It is Australia's number one fantasy analyst, Taylor Goodall.
Boys, the first part of semen is C. And that's what was released because I'm the king of tipping and fantasy. Let's go.
Double champ, baby.
Damn.
Yeah.
We just got fucked.
Absolutely making up for an abysmal start to the week run this season. He's gone with the double champ during our playoff episodes.
Yeah, I I'm not going on any podcast next year. To all of a sudden, I'm going on G'day Gridiron. Now I'm basically hosting everything. I'm pastry press. I'm G'day Gridiron, and I'm fantasy host. Everything next year.
It's
boys.
a man of many talents.
Matty, we're going to
Yeah,
have
man.
to buy a bigger set of chains for him now.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know where you get him his size. I mean, this guy's 6'7". What do you do?
I don't know either. Can we get the Flavor Flav kind of clock, maybe? Can we go that side of
Yes, I reckon they'll have that at Sparty's, mate. I'm on it.
I can see Taylor with a Flavor Flav clock. Of course, though, you put it over.
You know what time it is?
Me and you would be Flavor Flav wise, take up our whole chest.
Yeah,
You put it
but
over
it'll be like
Taylor's
a pocket watch.
It's a pocket watch.
It reminds me of Homer Simpson when he goes to clown college and he's like, these pants are meant to be baggy. I've never had a pair of pants that fit this well in my life.
Yeah. That's
On point.
That's our Taylor. Absolutely.
Anyway,
All right.
what's this podcast about again?
We are here to entertain you. That is basically what we're here for. We're going to recap. We're going to give you our thoughts. We don't give you a recap as such on the Super Bowl. It's Thursday Australian time right now. You'll be listening to this probably Friday or Saturday. Depends on how lazy I am. But by now, you know the score of the Super Bowl. You've heard recaps from all of the NFL Mediaverse and everybody else, and you've listened to all the things and the breakdowns. You've seen Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley on the Tonight Show. Who were they on with? Conan? I don't know who the hell they were on with, but on one of the Tonight Shows, you've seen all that kind of crap. You've seen plenty of reels and TikToks and all sorts of shit. So we're going to give you our thoughts and reactions on just sort of just the craziness that was this Super Bowl. And it was a crazy Super Bowl, boys. The Kansas City Chiefs, I said it all season, the Chiefs were inevitable. And I backed them, and they came through in the craziest games all season, one-score games that were just ridiculous wins that they shouldn't have won, and they just did, and it just flowed on, and they were 15-2 at the end of the season, and on an absolute high. And then they go through a pretty good playoff series, you get to the championship game, win that, push their way into the Super Bowl, and then all of a sudden they get absolutely boat raced by the Philadelphia Eagles, who at one point, let's halftime, 24-0 at halftime, the Kansas City Chiefs were down. Kansas Shitty Chiefs is what I accidentally said then, and that was correct at halftime.
Downfall started.
So, they didn't even start scoring really until the third quarter. And so it wasn't a bad Super Bowl on historical Sanders, because we still have Patriots Super Bowls that were just defense heavy and, one score games with only single digit scores between teams. But, in terms of scoring, huge. Big moments, huge. But the Kansas City Chiefs were just 40-22 as a final score for me. Doesn't tell the whole story. It doesn't paint the whole picture, because, Matty, they were absolutely dominated through the first 3 quarters of this game.
Yeah, they were. And I mean, there were so many alarming things. I won't take all of the content on this, but there were points through that first half where it's like, wow, the Eagles have more first downs than the Chiefs have yards. And it really, to me, really boiled down to which unit did I think of those 4 was going to have the most trouble. And I mean, I was pinching myself as I was saying it, because I'm like, are you sure this is the right thing to say, given what we know about this team over the last 6-7 seasons? But to me, the worst unit on the field for this game was going to be the Chiefs offense. So the defenses were both fantastic, and I knew that the Eagles offense had points in it, but I didn't know the Chiefs offense had points in it, because we've seen it once 2 weeks ago, and I kind of felt like that was their Super Bowl in a lot of ways. So, like, without going into massive depth on it, it was really a reminder of what it's like if you turn up with the defensive line who can just overwhelm, because that Chiefs offensive line that struggled so much against Tampa, and this was the comparison I heard a lot on the day, that a couple of years ago, that offensive line had one starter. Everyone else had been hurt. This time, they had all their starters, and they were getting chased around by that Eagles defensive line like it was kind of boys versus man, and it made a massive difference. This is where I want to hear from Nick straight away. This is a man who spends his whole life in the trenches, big guys in helmets. It's the unsexiest work on the field, but it is 100% where games won and lost. I've got to imagine you've got some perspective on how that trench battle went down and what you were seeing, given how you spend your life.
It pretty much, like 2 years ago, it just summed up where, and for a lot of teams, this is the case. It elevates like offensive line. I know sort of beating, own drum being an offensive lineman here, but you look at guys that have become reasonably solid quarterbacks and then become good quarterbacks, through their stats and everything. Like an example of that would be, Jared Goff, for example. But from the other end, it was so crazy just watching that game because we all knew that on both sides of the line that the Eagles were clearly outclassing them, even before going into the game. Like I don't think that was just sort of something that was glossed over. Like everyone sort of knew that the defensive line was both better with the Eagles, and the offensive line was definitely both better with the Eagles. And it just got to something where I don't understand why Mahomes or Reed didn't make adjustments to it, because Vic Fangio, just played very, very simple, played quarters coverage for most of the game. So they dropped 4 back, they had 3 underneath, and then they just said, right, 4 and 5, and they won, I think it was a crazy stat I saw, 45% of the time on dropbacks, which is insane. So it's clear that the Chiefs they had some drops, but they didn't have too much prepared in the short game, which is really weird. They abandoned the run pretty much the whole game. But it just shows, that the Eagles have got heavy investment on their offensive line. Kelsey retired, and then boom, they find a center that's serviceable, can do everything for them. They took a chance on Becton, who was originally a tackle. He was a left tackle, then played right tackle with the Jets. Now he's playing guard, which is not an easy thing to do. And the Chiefs were makeshift as well. They had Tooney playing at left tackle. He got absolutely destroyed. And in all fairness, I think Josh Sweat could have easily been the MVP on the day with, I think, 2.5 sacks.
2.5 sacks, bro.
Yeah.
So it just proves again, most important positions on the field, both sides of the line. The Eagles have done it very well, and that's why 2 out of the last 3 years they're just there, and they've made the last 4 playoffs, and they've finally broken through, and they just absolutely, it's a difference between Jalen Hurts having time and look at the balls he threw, and then Patrick Mahomes just running around all day. So it's just really the difference.
Isaac, the Eagles really dominated in the passing game, just totally in the passing game. Jalen Hurts ended up with 221 yards, 2 TDs, and of course then he ran for another 72 yards. He really showed us like a full-on complete game here. There wasn't a lot out of Saquon Barkley, but not as many as we expected, and certainly not until like later in the game. But the Eagles' offense, they just completely went to town on what ended up being a sort of a hapless Chiefs defense in the first half.
Yeah, and I think I heard on a podcast last week that they've been saving Jalen Hurts for this game. So, like, they've been putting him on the back burner all year. And then 2 weeks ago when they played Washington, or 3 weeks now. But, just saving him for this game. And I think I owe an apology to Nick Sirianni. Like I've been saying all throughout the playoffs, that he's going to get outcoached. He's going to get this. He's going to get that. He doesn't have the locker room, but he showed that he does, and he knows more than what I think he does anyway.
Well, no apology to Nick Sirianni, mate. He's still a jabroni, but it just does mean that he can figure out how to coach. And he doesn't do all the coaching there, but I did hear this week, and he was open about the fact that he deliberately picks offensive coordinators and defensive coordinators that can do all of that job so that he can concentrate on the bigger picture of the game through a game and the bigger picture of running a team week to week, versus he thinks that if he was the coordinator, he gets caught up too much in just the game day decisions and just running like just the playbook. So that's great. Like he openly admitted that and said that that's not my failing would be getting stuck in that coordinator role and getting caught in a playbook and not seeing what the big picture of the game that is happening, which is great. So,
yeah, and also to the little story behind the scenes there is Kellen Moore probably knew he was getting made the Saints coach. It was in New Orleans,
100%.
and he wanted to show out. He wanted to make a good impression inside the stadium.
Well, I tell you what, to have the last thing you've done as an Eagles coordinator is to win a Super Bowl and then move to the exact same stadium you're playing in. Like, you've just have that feeling you can carry across to the next season, and just go, I know what it was like to play in a Super Bowl in this stadium, and then just, I guess, almost use that as a pump up for, I don't know, the 58-year-old Derek Carr. Or
he's known he's had that job for a month too, right? Like, he's
yeah,
known for a month.
100%.
He has 100%. Well, he's known he's had that job since everybody else pulled out. They wouldn't even have to talk to him at that point. He would have the last one standing there going, me.
And just on the Chiefs, there, I think the one-score games takes a toll on you mentally and physically. I know we talked about them a bit when they rested their players in week 17 or 18 against the Broncos. That probably rested them enough for the playoffs, and it just come down to this, and they just couldn't get up for it.
Yeah, Taylor, I openly said last week when we did our preview that I felt like the Chiefs, Andy Reid, Spags, given 2 weeks to figure out how to stop that Eagles offense, that Eagles defense, that they would be able to do that, because you give them 2 weeks to focus on one team and one team specifically, and how do I stop that bit and how do I stop that bit. But it turns out, and I'll admit it, Tay, you give the Eagles 2 weeks to figure out how to really dominate the Chiefs and figure out where all their actual weaknesses were, and it was a complete opposite.
All right. And, I'm not past selfless, self-promotion. And I'm going to give two people credit here, and first person is me. I some of the greatest analysis anyone in this world's ever seen. Look, anyway, I will say I really do believe that Jalen Hurts was getting slept on before this game, and I brought it up in my analysis. I felt like Spagnuolo was going to try and take Barkley out of this game. I'm not saying that that's exactly what happened. I just think that just generally just didn't have one of his better games. They obviously had some sort of defensive scheme to sort of take him out to a degree. They didn't take him out of the passing game, but in the running game, they seemed to do a pretty good job on him. I really felt like Jalen Hurts was probably getting left in the garage to a degree because he didn't need to be out there in all these other games. Like, if you've got Saquon running for 200 yards, I don't understand why people were surprised why Jalen Hurts was having 150-yard passing games when you've got your running back running for 200. I just don't understand why that was always this constant issue to do with him. I think they are so much better in the trenches in both sides of the ball. I really feel like they've got the better O-line. They've got the better D-line. I was not surprised by this. I brought up that I thought they were going to need to win a game by more than a score. Obviously, that fucking turned out. No one predicted they were going to be up 40-6. Like, that was insane. But I really felt like they were going to have to come in here and beat the shit out of this Chiefs team, and that's exactly what happened. I really felt like they were the better team everywhere except quarterback and coach. And I think sometimes if you're better in 50-odd players on the other team and just not the other two, I think there is always a chance that you're going to be able to do this to them. And the fact was the Chiefs just didn't turn up and the Eagles did. So I was pretty happy with how it turned out in the end. The second person's Howie Roseman. I cannot believe how...
Yeah. No, everyone slept on Howie Roseman. We talk about sleeping on Jalen Hurts. Sleeping on Howie Roseman.
What? Another... Again, I'm going back to the first person I thanked, which was myself. I brought up that I thought that the biggest difference between these two teams from 2 years ago was the defense. And a huge part of it was Howie Roseman. What he did in the draft was insane. That was the part of the Eagles you could attack, was their secondary and being able to pass on them 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. That became the biggest strength of them in a way. I'm not saying they're better than a lot of the other parts, but the fact was you saw Cooper DeJean, you saw, Quinyon Mitchell, you saw these guys just like defending the shit out of these guys. And that they made plays, and that was a big difference from what you saw 2 years ago. Like the Chiefs were able to throw and come back and score 38 points. They were never doing that this game. But yes, Mahomes probably missed some throws. He 100% did. It wasn't all the Eagles defense, but the difference was that this is all Harry Roseman. This is all the draft process. The amount of Jalen Carter, these guys that they seem to pick up in the draft that fall and these other teams don't pick up. You could say, yes, it's lucky or whatever, but the fact is these other teams are constantly leaving these guys because of maybe a little bit of off-field issues or dramas or whatever. And the Eagles are constantly picking up value on these guys. And look what happens. They go and win a Super Bowl by 18 points and it should have been 35. I just think in the end, you've got to give credit where credit's due to a guy like that. So I just think the Eagles deserved it. I thought they were the better team in most areas. Sometimes that doesn't matter when you've got a guy like Mahomes and Reed, but in the end, it mattered on this day.
Manjot, you're probably the last guy we haven't heard anything from. What are your thoughts? Give us some broader thoughts on this game as a whole.
So
what did you see?
He's been so patient.
He has.
Man.
He hasn't said a word. He hasn't said an absolute word.
Just been listening, and I think probably, firstly, got to congratulate our Aussie boy, Jordan Mailata, getting the first ring by an Australian who played in the Super Bowl. Second Aussie to get a ring as well.
Well done, Manjot, for being the first person to bring that up on this podcast, by the way.
I was saving that one up for one.
On point with Manjot's, just straight down the line Aussie stuff. There we go. Well done.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, I mean, Jordan Mailata, what a story. I mean, I'll just bring that one up quickly, going from South Sydney and Canterbury Bulldogs junior rugby league player told he isn't fit enough to play rugby league, goes to the international pathway program of the NFL, then just gets picked up in the 7th round by the Philadelphia Eagles, and then turns himself into probably the best left tackle in the league. I did give him that award on the Patient Performer Team of the Year. Spoiler alert. There you go. That's how you guys know I recorded that show. But in terms of Mailata, he was just great in this game. Him and that O-line just were great. I mean, seeing some of the videos as well of him pumping up Jalen Hurts, who was having probably a career day. I mean, I think, in my opinion, Spagnuolo and that defense, they definitely sold out on Saquon because, I mean, why wouldn't you? They tempted Jalen Hurts to beat them. And apart from that interception, Hurts was perfect. There was some beautiful deep balls. I mean, Devontae Smith, he had that great catch to make it 34-0. There was great deep balls all first half, and just the way Hurts was able to use his legs, he has the top 2 rushing yards in terms of a game in the history of the Super Bowl. And just the way he's done it, I think a lot of people definitely doubted him. It was a great performance by Hurts. I think he was thoroughly deserving of the MVP. I mean, you can make the case for Josh Sweat and some of the guys in the defense. But, yeah, I definitely think Jalen Hurts deserved it. I mean, he's done a lot. I think Howie Roseman's done a lot to really come back after the season they had in 2020 where they're dog shit, let's be honest. They had 4 wins that year after being in the Super Bowl and winning against New England 3 years before that. They went from Super Bowl champions down to the bottom, back up to the top in 7 or 8 years, which is just an incredible job by Howie Roseman and his team. It's just incredible. With only 4 guys who had actually played in both Super Bowls as well. Just really shows how great that rebuild was in between those 2 Super Bowls. And I think as well with Philadelphia, I mean, their fan base, we talk a lot about their fan base, but man, they probably had 2 of the best. If you had to choose all the teams with 2 Super Bowl victories, they probably had the best 2 out of all of them. They beat Brady in a high-scoring shootout, and they beat Mahomes like this as well. Just incredible in terms of history there. And I think just watching that game, I think the moment where you could really say it was sealed for me, I think when Cooper DeJean just returned that interception all the way to the house. I think that was the moment where the door started to really shut on Kansas City. They could never find a way back. Zach Bourne's interception right before halftime as well. That was probably the nail in the coffin. You're down 17, and then Bourne makes that diving pick. It's over at that point.
Yeah.
Mahomes wasn't coming back there. I mean, we had reports of 28-3 potentially happening again, and that sort of thing. Because
I'm glad I wasn't the only one. I'm glad.
Yeah.
I was tempted. I looked at Sportsbet and they were paying $18 to Chiefs, and it was just like,
Oh, got up. I had a look. I was like, oh, okay,
and I was the only one
going?
thinking. I was the only one thinking Brady's a little bit more uncomfortable because there's a potential of the three-peat and the comeback in the same. But it was like you said, Manjot. It was was over sort of when they went 3 and out, and then that dime to Devonta Smith. That was definitely the ceiling.
That was just free ceiling moments right there. Like bang, bang, bang. That's all the nails in the coffin right there for the Chiefs. Right there. That was a repeat of moments.
That pass to Devontae showed the mindset of that Eagles team, though. It wasn't, we're up 24. Let's just run the ball out and just try and win 24-14. It was, let's fucking put a nail in these assholes. It was let's end this right now. And that really is what you have to do to the Chiefs. You can't give them a sniff. And that's honestly what the Atlanta should have done against fucking Pats a few those minutes ago, is they really should have taken a shot. They shouldn't have just tried to fucking ding and dung and do whatever they did. And then there was obviously a lot of different penalties and shit that fucking got them out of whatever. But they that's what you need to do. You try to take, it's like a UFC fight. You have to fucking knock out the champ because you're going to get done in points if you don't. You have to do that. You really need to just knock them out while you can. And they were reeling, the Chiefs, and they decided instead of running the ball, and they were stopping Saquon at that point, let's throw to our Heisman winner and get him a fucking big play, and they knocked him out in that play, and it was actually really good to see.
Yeah, I mean, it was a really good performance all around for Philly, I think, and thoroughly deserving of the championship. A lot of people definitely had their doubts, I think, about Philadelphia, myself included. I have to admit, I had a lot of doubts about Philadelphia in the playoffs and everything. I think the moment that you knew they'd win the NFC pretty much was when they just managed to outlast the Rams. Because I think when you go back through their entire season, I think that game against the Rams in the divisional round was probably the one place where it could have been all over. They struggled their way to winning that one. I mean, they were up by a point after they conceded a safety, and then they just got a couple of turnovers against the Rams. And I think that was as close as it got for Philadelphia to not be Super Bowl champions. Because after that, it just looked like once they survived LA, they just came out, beat Washington, came out, beat Kansas City, all over before halftime in both games. And I think really it was just a testament to them surviving that divisional round game. They had then just destroyed 2 teams in a row after that. So it really just shows how close the margins are in the NFL, just how close you are from defeating the Super Bowl
Rams
champions.
game wasn't close, man, Jot. Let's not pretend the game was close. It was close for about a minute and a half, but the Eagles were in cruise control.
I don't know about that. The Rams definitely had their
the Rams
chances.
couldn't tackle a bar stool in that game.
I think that just shows the Rams were the second best team in the league.
That was what I was saying, Nick. Isaac. Yeah, that's all I was saying. That's all. I wanted to set you up here.
Not have shit buttoned up. That even 28-22 flatters in there.
Oh, Mr. Jackson.
It's not a shot. It's not a
Seriously.
shot.
Come on, man.
It's not a shot.
We go, Isaac.
This is the team who blew teams away. That the 22-10 against the Packers. The Packers weren't in that game either. They just hands down beat everyone in their face comfortably. It's okay.
No, the Eagles were handing. The Eagles were trying everything to
You're
lose that game
telling
against
me-
the Rams.
You're telling me the Eagles weren't puckering their little buttholes when they gave Matt
they were
Stafford 2
terrified
minutes,
when the Rams just let
2 minutes to go down the field.
Barkley
Come on.
running 70 and 60 yards. Yeah, they were terrified of that defense that couldn't tackle shit. Yeah.
Let's go.
Absolutely.
Let's go. I
Yeah.
set these boys up.
I'm
I
fine.
knew Matty was
Fucking
going to say
bullshit.
I'm
some shit.
absolutely
Let's go.
fine with this.
Let's
go.
And for once, Maddie's he's got 2 49ers fans in the house and he's picking on the Rams bloke. This is great.
Well, you know,
Oh,
because when you
man.
win 7 games, you don't get to talk in the postseason, right? So,
Hey.
those two don't
All right,
differ in
Mr.
any
Win-
way.
wins.
Won
Just saying.
14 games, and I don't want to talk in the postseason. Like it's
And Ian, just adding to that as well with the win totals, it's very interesting. The Chiefs winning 15 games. No team since the the first two teams who won 15 games in the season, 84 49ers, 85 Bears, both won the Super Bowl. Ever since, if you win 15 games in a season, you don't win the goddamn Super Bowl. And there were some decent teams in there as well. Some teams who you thought were a bit overinflated. The 16-0 Patriots, even like they're included here. So with winning 15 games in a year is definitely a curse at this point. You have to win. You have to start losing a bit. I reckon, in terms of 14 games, 13 games. Just make sure you don't get to 15 or more.
Interesting
Which
strategy.
What you're saying is
Yeah.
losing games is good, man, John. Go the
Yeah.
top.
Yeah.
Go the boys.
Yeah, let's tank ball. Tank ball. Let's
Giants
go see.
route.
Remember
Giants
the
won like
time.
9 and 10 in their seasons. Just
Another-
take the Giants route.
that was another episode of Manjot talking nerdy.
Yeah.
So,
Can I just say, too,
Nerdy like Birdie.
I've talked a world record amount of shit already on this podcast, but
correct.
I just want to say that even I couldn't have predicted this absolute blowout. Like it was, I had my reasons as to why I thought the Eagles would win, why I thought they were the better team, but in the end, like this was just an absolute catastrophe for the Chiefs. Like no one could predict an absolute blowout like this. It was just one of these games where it was. I thought it was very similar to the Tampa Bay game where it was basically Mahomes getting blown up. But the difference was, I thought Mahomes still showed flashes in that game, and it looked to me like the only reason they lost was because of that offensive line. The offensive line in this game was only a part of it, and it was more to do with the Eagles' defense being amazing more than the offensive line, I think. And it was Mahomes just being shit. Like, he was so bad in this game, and he was just missing passes that he normally throws. So I just think this was a very similar game script where the Mahomes was just getting blown up and he just couldn't get anything done. And like I said, it was very similar. I think the Eagles on offense were better than Tampa were back then. So that's why you saw a blowout. But in the end, it was incredibly hard to predict that this is what we were going to see.
Yeah, I don't think anyone at all would have ever predicted the halftime stats. And I when we got to halftime and it was 24-0, I had to take screenshots of the box scores because you just don't normally see them come up, and it's hard to find them. And these box scores, it's insane. Some of these things are insane. Total yards at halftime: 23 total yards for Kansas City, 179 for the Eagles. That's just. And then Matty mentioned 1 first down versus 13 for the Eagles. What were some of the other highlights in there?
23 yards for the Chiefs, 24 points for the Eagles. More points than yards given up. Amazing.
Yep. It's passing 6 for 14 from the Chiefs versus 11 from 15 for the Eagles. 1.2 yards per pass for the Kansas City Chiefs in the first half. I'm just like, what?
Juju was leading with 2 for 16.
Yeah.
That doesn't say
Touchdown
enough.
was their first play of the game, too. It was an 11-yard pass to Juju. That was the first play of the game. Do you remember? For the Chiefs, that was their first offensive play, and then nothing.
And that was their only first down of the half.
And the narrative leading into the Super Bowl, of course, had been everything about the Chiefs get all the penalties and the refs are helping them out. But here we are at halftime, and the Chiefs ended up with 4 penalties for a loss of 45 yards, and the Eagles were 3 for 25. So they got more penalised than the Eagles.
Yeah, I would have to say
yards.
though, that first drive, AJ Brown, that offensive PI, that was the most bullshit.
That was bullshit.
That was there, though.
That was bullshit. But there was also a defensive PI on the next one against the Eagles, which was total bullshit.
Makeup, yeah.
They don't make up. There was some terrible. There was horrendous calls. I'm not saying there wasn't horrendous calls. There was.
I'm just saying it was.
Those two were both
probably
bad.
meaning
They were both
that was the
equally
difference
as
between
bad.
40 and 50. That was the difference between 40 and 50 for the Eagles, in my opinion.
Yeah,
like they could have put 50 on the Chiefs if that OPI was like taken back.
But the two things in the first half, I think, that come from the stat lines that really put the nails in the coffin were the 2 turnovers by Mahomes in the first half. Of course, Manjot mentioned it. Pick 6 to one of the first white cornerbacks to ever score a touchdown in a Super Bowl, Cooper DeJean.
in an NFL game.
In an NFL game, you don't see white cornerbacks.
I've got
They got
I've
two.
got a
They
funny
got
stat
two.
too.
They got two white DBs on the Eagles, and there was a nickname that they had for him. I'm trying to remember it now off the cuff.
Oh god, it's
There
gonna
was
be
a
white
video-
chicks, isn't it?
No, it was something like that. It was there wasn't white chicks, but it was something like white magic or something like that. It was just like
amazing.
all the rest of the DBs and the Eagles basically just ripping on the fact that these two white dudes, but they're two outstanding players, and that's the best part of it. But those two turnovers, obviously, there's the second turnover put them in like 10 yards, put them right in the red zone. They score from that. So that's two turnovers. 14 points came from that, and I reckon that's what actually put the final nails in that coffin. It was when you give up two turnovers in the Super Bowl, and they both result in points. You're pretty much doomed for. And then the very last thing, the possession stats. Manjot talked about it in the green room earlier. 10 minutes of possession for the Chiefs in the first half. Basically 20 minutes, so double for the Eagles, because they just ran the ball down their throat, held onto that ball, would not give it back, and basically gave them no options outside of those interceptions, which made Mahomes obviously throw interceptions apart from throwing at people's feet, Matty.
Yeah, I mean, G. Taylor lost his mind about that play too, where DeAndre Hopkins is the only guy in half a field. Mahomes can either just pump, fake, and run, whatever, or just throw a regulation ball to a receiver who can catch. We know we can
Anything
catch.
else? Literally anything else.
Take it on, Taylor. Go, run with it.
I was losing, like Matty summed it up perfectly. I was losing my mind, and I'm losing my mind right now. And I'm not even watching the game. But yeah, it just proved that Mahomes just wasn't right. Like he makes that play 10 out of 10 times during the regular season, every other playoffs. Like he either decides to tuck and run and has 30 yards, or he throws an absolute dot to DeAndre Hopkins on the run and he runs for 30 or 40 himself. Like he picked the only option that wasn't going to work on that play. And it wasn't just that moment. It was just the fact of how big it was at that time. Like that was the one drive they had to make a move on. Like it was right before that Devontae Smith play, I believe. Like they were needing a play to get themselves back in the game, and then that was the moment, and then he completely duffed it. Like it was just that was the moment for me where I was like, nah, Mahomes doesn't have it today. Like I don't think he's coming back from this.
Yeah.
Even at
I
10-0, when Deshaun runs that touchdown in, you go, the list of teams who've come back from more than 10 points down in a Super Bowl it's one. It is one. It's literally one. That number is the same when you go from 10 all the way up to 28 to 3. And so it just almost never happens. And that moment, you go, wow, this is the second quarter. I'm calling it now.
No, I think you kind of weren't, though, were you, Matty? Because you're kind of going, nah, it's the Chiefs. They'll do something. It's the Chiefs. They've got to do something. You know, they'll have some kind of magic tricks that
17,
Andy Reid.
I'm like, I think I'm calling it.
Yeah.
Well, if you
I was
think of
zooming around the office. I wore a black shirt with a green button-up shirt over the top, like light colored pants, and I was zooming around the office like my green shirt was wings, mate. I was going, fly, Eagles, fly! Because at that point, I'm like, gee, I think I'm calling it.
yeah, you got to think to
crazy.
Patrick Mahomes' first playoff game. He was down 24-0 to Deshaun Watson and the Texans, and they come back and they won. So that was always in the back of my mind that they could come back.
Yeah.
But then
that was a different era.
Well,
Like that was before the
Gatorade.
Mahomes became boring.
Though, like didn't he come back like straight away? I swear they were almost
Yeah.
and a half time. Like
yeah,
that was the quickest comeback ever. Even the game after, the fucking Titans were up 14-0 against them, and then all of a sudden it was 24-14 or something at half time. Like
The Chiefs went off 51-7 run at the end of that game against the Texans. It was 24-24 half. Yeah, that was that was definitely a crazy one. So yeah, definitely I do agree with Isaac. Like games like that, you do know Mahomes can do it. I mean, he came back 3 times to win all 3 of his Super Bowls, down 10 points, 14 points. So so he has the history there, but the Eagles just closed the door. I had one good stat for you boys. We'll talk about Cooper Eugene being with representing all the white corners out there. Well,
Give me some Dijon mustard. Let's go.
Yeah, let's go. Cooper
Eugene
Eugene.
in the middle.
That pick, it was the first pick by a white corner in the playoffs since probably early 2000s, Jason Sehorn. And that was against the Eagles coached by Andy Reid. So you can say Andy Reid's worst nightmare is a white cornerback.
Okay, and on that bombshell, the game was so over. The game was so over that, of course, we saw the Gatorade dump at like 2 minutes 30 to go.
I know, they weren't even kneeling.
And then I know the most hilarious part I found of that was actually, and I don't know whether anybody else would have remembered it because it's Super Bowl ads, and not everyone gets to watch them in Australia. It depends on if you're on an international feed or not. But you get in there. So Fetch, which is an app in the States. We're doing a massive giveaway, $1.2 million in cash, and they basically were doing. It was like $10,000 every 10 seconds or something during the final 2 minutes of the game. So Fetch didn't even get to their huge $1.2 million giveaway, and the game, like the Eagles players were dumping Gatorade and celebrating, and so they've gone the whole 2 minute drill, which was a nothing 2 minute drill, giving away $10,000 every 10 seconds to customers live, and like the whole thing's over. Like no one gave a shit. Like it's just absolutely hilarious. The huge thing that they did. $1.2 million. But anyway, on that bombshell. So that was the Super Bowl. That was what it is. That's what it is, and it is what it is right now. It's in the history books. 40-22 to the Eagles. Super Bowl champions once again. Jalen Hurts finally gets that and an MVP award, and very well deservedly so for that game because he did play an amazing game. Of course, there were many Eagles players you probably could have picked out of all of that as well to be the MVP. It would have been interesting to see who they went with Chiefs side if they would have actually won or come back from that. It'd be interesting to see who would have been the bigger guy in terms of receivers or anyone else, or if it would have just been Mahomes again. Of course, we do have some other stuff to recap, just to follow up on and just tidy up. Best bets, our AGN multi. What an absolute shit show from start to finish during the playoff series this year, boys. We introduced this because on G'day Gridiron we started doing best bets this year, and we're going to carry that on. As long as Nick, Brad, and I are doing a podcast together, we are definitely just punching out bets every year.
Wait, you get the new G'day Gridiron host? I don't think I heard my name.
No, I just mentioned the three of us being together. Technically, our Bets with Mate group is up around roughly 150%. So we've done pretty well between the three of us over the season on various ones. Of course, that is if we count in the money that Brad lost us by accidentally forgetting a decimal point.
Amazing.
Oh, that was funny. And the pure stress he had from
He's
that.
so much stress.
Like, how do I get the money back? How do I put the money back in?
The stress was
I was like, it doesn't matter now. The money's gone, Brad. Don't worry about it.
So if you count that, we are up around about 150% roughly on rough numbers. So we've done pretty well. But of course, we decided to carry that through in a playoff series and thought, let's stick together in multi. Everyone will chuck out a line every week. Their favourite line, and we'll stick together in multi. And we've had some pretty big hits line on line. Matty is a guy who doesn't bet at all, has been an absolute heater with anytime touchdowns.
Yeah, 2 minutes there.
It all came crashing down in the Super Bowl.
The biggest, fattest running back in the game. I mean, you can't tell me that it wasn't a good bet.
It was a good bet if the Kansas City Chiefs could actually do anything in this game, Matty. That's probably where it was. It was me, wasn't it? Yeah, I took Barkley. Did I take Barkley anytime touchdown? No. That was one of my lines. I can't remember who I ended up doing. No, I went the under. That's what I did. Yeah, we had Barkley for an anytime touchdown. That didn't hit either because he basically played a pass blocking game. So we bombed there. Dallas got it. Was one of Tay's too. The one that Sportsbet would let us take there. Dallas got it over 4.5 total receptions. A tight end, an Eagles tight end, couldn't get 4.5 receptions in this game.
Well, he didn't. He had the 2 at halftime, and then they didn't need to pass in the entire second half, except for one bomb to fucking Devontae Smith. So, yeah, that's all they needed.
That's all they need. That's all she wrote. So the three that did hit out of our 6-leg multi last week, Saquon Barkley under 109.5 rushing yards. What a bet. What a line that was. Mint.
Mint.
Jalen Hurts, anytime touchdown scorer. And then Manjot's Mahomes 2+ passing touchdowns, which just got there thanks to garbage time. Manjot was sweating on that line for 3 quarters. I'll tell you that right now.
Oh man, I needed some garbage time for sure. I mean, 10.7 rating at halftime, and then in the second half, he was like almost damn near perfect passer rating Mahomes. So he had the best garbage time of all time. Just saying.
Yep,
Coded his way.
absolutely.
Oh, the
Did.
garbage man can.
The garbage. Isn't there a movie about garbage men? What was that one? Was it called Garbage Men? Emilio Estevez. Was it one of the Estevez
That's
guys?
the Mighty Ducks.
No,
Yeah,
what was it? No, I was going to go. What was the other Estevez? Who was the other Estevez that was the garbage?
Shag,
the garbage
the player's
man
mum.
I'm trying to remember
Yeah, he puts
80s.
the garbage on the ice and then they play with it, don't they?
No.
I'm trying to
And not
remember
Goldberg's mum. Banks' mum. That's the one.
Banks's mum. Absolutely.
Goldberg!
Got it going on.
Goldberg!
I don't know. I'm remembering some weird 80s movie, that's for sure.
Oh.
So good.
I'll remember at some point during this podcast, and I'll bring it up randomly. So that was best bets for the Super Bowl and to end the AGN playoff series. We didn't hit on a single one. We hit on some lines here and there. So hopefully you didn't take our advice and put a whole multi on and you stuck some lines on instead. But that was a lot of fun, boys, I think.
Yeah, that was. We do this thing too where we put everyone on a spot and get them to give us a score and a team prediction. So Manjot had the most pressure on him because last time we had this matchup, he took the Chiefs and he took them 38-35, bold to say let's get him 73 points in the Super Bowl. But it came up. He got the team and he got the score. So this time around, he had all the pressure on him. He backed the Chiefs 35-28. And it didn't come up. Let's quickly run through the Chiefs bettors here. Nick took 33-20. That would have looked great if it was the other way around. It was the Eagles. But so you had the right idea, Nick. See you there, mate. Ian, you just thought my score was great, but I had picked the wrong team, 30-24 Chiefs. Isaac, you took the Chiefs as well, 27-24. Brad, not here to speak for, so let's all dump on Brad, 28-24. But then Taylor, you smart little devil. You didn't take the Chiefs. Talk us through it.
I don't know if you heard me earlier on the podcast. I may have spooked myself a little bit. But, yeah, look, in the end, I never would have forecasted the outcome in terms of it being sitting there at 40-6 or whatever it was. Like, it was just an absurd game. I really did think the Eagles needed to beat the shit out of them and win by more than the score, and that's why I went with 9. But in the end, yeah, it was. I really did have confidence in the Eagles. So I thought they were the better team, so I was pretty happy with the pick. But like I said, it was just an unbelievable, unpredictable outcome in terms of the margin for sure.
Yeah, 33-24 was your pick. So actually not terribly far off at 40-22. Although at 40-6, you weren't so sure it was going to look that close. I had 30-24, same score as Ian, but other team. So you and I feel pretty good about that. In the overall for the entire playoff series, Tay, I was a victim of Matty Mass last week. You did go into the week with Brad Evans. So you get the result. You jump out to 9 total points. Congratulations. You win the playoff series.
I love the way this worked out too, by the way, is that Brad wasn't with us last week for that first show, and he gave me his tip, and that I made Taylor tell us his tip first, and then read Brad's out at the end. And just the fact that Taylor was then, as soon as he heard me read Brad's out, was like, holy shit, it means we're actually against each other.
It's on. So Taylor comes up with 9, which is perfect, right? And then Brad had 8. So it turns out, they go into the week 8 each. And then picking opposite teams, someone has to win outright. Taylor wins outright. So well done, mate. You're on a good spot there.
Ian was right in that too, because I'll give some credit. Like one of the main reasons I even picked the Chiefs the 2 weeks earlier against the Bills is because I knew I needed to catch Brad. And when he took the Bills first, that's sort of what eared me over to the Chiefs. So it was actually good to have me actually pick mine first, just to make sure I wasn't just sort of playing the game. But like I said, I was pretty confident in the Eagles. I really, really like the way that they've been playing and them in the trenches and everything. I've already talked about it. I don't need to talk about it anymore. But and like Ian said, it was actually good to actually get my tip first this time instead of me just playing the game.
Was.
Then from there, so you get 9 points, Brad gets 8 points. I sneakily come in third with 7, and then there's a little bit of a gap to the rest of the fellas. But it shows how close it was at the top. We then did a whole bunch of prop betting on the game. Do any of you guys remember what you did with some of these prop bets? If I read them out.
Oh, here we go.
I kind of remember, but this is going to be an interesting.
I think the only one I got right was the no doink.
I know I got the Gatorade right. Lemon lime for the win, Matty.
Yes. Squash courts, mate. Yeah.
Finally, squash court lemon lime comes on home.
Come home. Thank Dad for that one, mate.
Yeah.
Mate, so we all whiffed on the celebrity in Taylor's box. And I don't know, as she had ice spice in there for a second year in a row.
That's an amazing phrase.
Oh my god. We all whiff on it. So how about that?
She did
have thought
once.
a bunch of seriously uncultured people were gonna miss on that one. Anyway, so we missed on that one. Ice Spice was the win. We all took an assortment of random idiots who weren't there. But then, running from there, the very first bet that would have come up outside of that, and there wasn't a lot of Taylor stuff in the game, which was kind of disappointing because my kids and I had a real whole Travis and Taylor bingo card going on, and we didn't end up ticking off a single fucking box except for the blank space in the middle. But the first bet we had was how many yards will the opening drive go for?
Bullshit. This is bullshit.
Have a go at this. The bet was Manjot was the nearest. There was 20 yards on the first drive. Manjot bets 15. He's the closest. Ring the bell for Manjot. How about that one?
Ding, 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 ding.
Where's my fucking AJ Brown pass interference, my ass?
Oh, my God. Yeah, we were all set up if that was a play. Oh, my God.
Perfectly.
Thanks, refs. Thank you, refs. I'm sorry for roasting you like 2 minutes ago. Sorry.
How about that? The halftime margin. Okay, so we were all pretty close. We were all cagey. We were all like, Manjot goes to throw us out a big number like 10. Nick gets the big donger out and says 13. It turns out even his dong wasn't big enough. It's 24 points. But Nick, you're closest. Give yourself a pat on the back, mate. You win you win the jelly beans on that one.
You give yourself a pat on the dong.
Yeah.
I didn't envision that being the Eagles as far ahead.
I was going to say.
I definitely had the Chiefs leading by that much, but we won't go down that path.
That's why I said, don't tell me a team. Just give me a score.
Didn't need the team. Just need.
Never admit that, Nick. Just take it to your grave.
Right. No one heard that.
Taking your graves, the Philly grave bar, graving the Rams behind me here. Mate, the next one was doinks, right? And this is always a tough one because there were so many kicks in this game. The more kicks you have, the more
Jake
chance.
Elliott, baby.
He went close. He went really damn close. One more cut of lacquer on those posts, I reckon, at 7-0. That could have been a doink. It wasn't. But it sort of meant that we'd had Brad and Ian expect doinks of various volumes. There wasn't any doinks, so Taylor and Nick and Manjot and myself will walk away with the 3 point on that one. The Gatorade bath, Ian, you and I took this one, mate. Squash court days. Come on, mate.
Go to squash court. Go play some squash in your off time.
Exactly.
It's a great pastime. Always smash a lemon lime Gatorade in a cup afterwards.
It is
a paper cup.
I'll be honest, it is traditional. Like if I right now, if I thought
first thing,
that is 100% the Gatorade I would think of.
Yep.
I used to take it all the time, but it's stupid because I picked the Eagles to win, but I got sucked into the whole purple narrative with the fucking Chiefs, and I'm like, why did I do that when I fucking think that the Eagles are going to win? I'm an idiot.
Yeah,
See, I took myself up, and now I'm talking myself down. I'm even going to.
The only bad part about it is that Americans still just call it lime.
Yeah,
they just don't call it lemon lime, and it's like that's not what it is.
Yeah, but they also think fucking lemonade and Sprite is different.
Well, they are technically to them
because they don't have a metric system either. There's a lot of things. We can go through a whole list of things.
Nick just comes in with a right hook. I love it. Sit down, America.
Much worse than that, but we'll leave it at that for now.
America, sit down.
Fuck yeah.
Fuck yeah. The last one, combined punts. We all went low, guys.
Our
bets range from 4 to 7, and at half time there were 7 punts, so we knew it was going to get higher than that. Did anyone see what the final score on punts was? 8. There was one second half punt
Was
because the Chiefs weren't punting and the Eagles kept scoring. So 8 was the total. I was the nearest with 7. It means I win the Super Bowl. I had 3 out of the 6 bets right. The next nearest, we had a few lads with 2. Nick Manjot and Nick and Manjot had 2. Taylor and Ian. Gosh, you guys had
One.
a tough.
Numero uno. We're number one, Tay.
Yeah,
We're number one.
That's
We're
what
number
Manny
one.
wins the Super
That's
Bowl
what-
too.
This is about how many you could get wrong, not right.
Yeah, there goes Ian and Taylor. Equal winners with mostly
yeah.
wrong.
Speaking of getting things right, Matty,
Yeah.
the movie was Men at Work. Charlie Sheen and Emilio Estevez. Fuck you,
What?
Emilio
The brothers.
Estevez. That's the movie.
They're stepbrothers, aren't they?
Yes, they are. That's the movie I was thinking of. Men at Work, because they were garbage men in that. There we go.
I would watch Step Brothers if those two played the Step Brothers. You know how that Will Ferrell movie Step Brothers?
Oh,
I'd watch that
Yeah.
if those
Oh,
two
that's the
did.
best.
That
Do a
was
remake.
that would
Come
be
on,
nice.
Hollywood.
Well, it's going to be hard when someone's dead.
Be rooting prostitute.
Yeah. I would 100% watch that. Do we want to recap the fantasy?
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Let's recap
Right.
some fantasy.
I like how one person's like, yes, because he had a pretty good week. So, all right. So, firstly, I just want to say before we kick into this, the folks at the NFL Australia and New Zealand Facebook page have been very good to me, just letting me spam the shit out of that page with all the fragrances I've made in the 2 weeks we didn't have. And that was a little passion project. I started thinking of a couple, and it just became a thing. And AI and myself had a really good time with that. So, if you haven't seen that, hop onto the Facebook page of NFL Oz NZ. There's lots of great content from all these other people too, but I spam the shit out of that. I've got about 40 fragrances up there. It was a heap of fun. The fantasy score.
Mind you, while you're there, spam the shit out of the Aussie Gridiron Network and our podcast at the same time too, because technically we're not allowed to self-promote on that page, and it is the one page that is the most full of Australian and New Zealand Aussie NFL fans. And it's
Yeah.
like, that's where we want to reach people, and we can't. So just, we can't self-promote. So just spam the shit out of it for us, will you?
I've literally been
Share
booted.
them everywhere.
I've been booted from 3 different groups from spamming our fucking podcast. So I've been-
Yeah.
So if
I've
you
done
just
my
get
best.
on there and say to
That's
people,
the
hey,
good
hey, this podcast is really cool. You should give it a listen. Cool. Perfect. Mint.
Punch up.
That punters and dribblers group from Hello Sport definitely booted me after about an hour of my pod stream, and I was like, I don't give a shit as long as I got like a couple listeners out of it. Who cares?
Right.
I guess at Hello Sport.
I usually get booted for a lot of other things, Taylor, because unbeknownst to anybody else, I'm very opinionated. Nobody would have ever picked that up at all.
I've got to be the top dog of getting blocked. Okay, I'm still blocked by the NFL on Instagram. Just got to say
Yeah.
that.
Are you still really blocked by him? By the
It's
NFL,
been-
the
They say
AU
months.
Oh
page?
my
jail.
god,
Is that the
you know-
NFL page or the NFL AU one?
No, just the NFL page. Man,
Yeah. Just the big one.
I get like people sending me
Fair enough.
posts and says post unavailable. Like literally, that is the worst thing about Instagram nowadays. I can't even see the NFL. We'll get it fixed one day when I get big. Trust. We'll get it fixed. But
Well, no wonder you
yeah,
got
you guys
multiple
can't-
profiles. I always wonder why.
I
Manjot's
can't
got-
see it on any. I can't see it on anything. It doesn't even work.
Oh,
on my
does it-
personal.
Does it block your total profile on Instagram?
It blocked
Oh,
everything. Yeah,
sneaky,
all
mate.
profiles.
Sneaky buggers. Zuckerberg didn't
Yeah.
do that with Facebook.
Yeah, I mean, quick shout out
You've
to
been
my
sucked,
boy
mate.
Jack, by the way, who won the tipping comp. I mean, every time he be sending me shit from the NFL page on IG, I have to tell him, I'm like, man, I'm still blocked, and he still can't believe it. Yeah,
Nah,
so
he's
it's been
got
a
his-
year and a half.
He's got his. Oh no, you can't even see it that way. Yeah, you're gonna have to put a new email address or something in there, Manjot.
Yeah.
What
it's
we need to do is
IP
get
or
Manjot
some
a
shit.
wife and then get his wife to like the NFL page, and then Manjot will be able to see.
Stay tuned for the
Manjot
Manjot Wants a Wife podcast during the
Coming.
off season.
Yeah.
Manjot at first sight. It's coming.
That's good.
Hey, Isaac, I wanted to throw to you before we got into the fantasy stuff. I was going to say top fantasy brains in this country. You like to think you're one of them, but something happened and you need to shout somebody out about it. And I can't go any further until you do this because you needed to do this the next time you came on.
I do. Reece Bowditch. He won our fantasy dynasty startup league this year. He's always loved fantasy. I've worked with him. We always used to talk for hours about it. So yeah, he won that. He also won the he come second, I think, in the tipping comp there, and he also won the one we've just done, the bracket challenge, as well. Plus, not only that, he's an Eagles fan as well, so he's had a really good year.
Generational run. Damn.
So good.
That's a
He's got an
generational
AGN
run.
prize pack coming his way. I reached out to him pretty well an hour after the Super Bowl finished to get sizes and a delivery address. So his stuff's on the way. And it's really good to have people who've just come into the show and found our show and interact with us like that, go and win stuff. But it's even better when they rub it into one of our analysts. So
well, that's right. And and he's become a listener, which is good. So he'll listen to this. So fuck you, Reece.
Yeah, the problem is,
give me my number one pick back.
Then he became a co-host, and now he drills me and everything, and I have to fucking hear about it. So careful, if he comes on the show, he might take it over.
Yeah,
I hope he comes on the show. He's a really good bloke, so it'll be good to get good to get his mind on all the fantasy stuff.
I'm just gonna finish off my shout out to Jack as well. He also he won the tipping comp overall, so shout out to him. Which also doubled up as the family tipping comp between his family and me. You know, we've been running that for like 6 years. So shout out Jack for winning those. And you know, I know he's probably listening. He has this thing where he likes to choose a new NFL team every year. This year, he finally chose a team that won the goddamn Super Bowl. So he chose the Eagles. And we know that NFL jerseys got an Eagles one too. So shout out Jack. It's coming your way.
No. All he asked me was for a Saquon Barkley jersey, man, John.
Oh,
I didn't say that I was going to get him an Eagles one.
Oh, don't worry, he'll be listening to this one. So Jack,
he's definitely a Giants fan next year. Right?
Yeah, Jack.
Him and Josh, for sure. Him and Josh can suffer as Giants fans next year.
Yeah, Jack, your bandwagon days done.
Do you reckon he'd be cranky if I got him a Giants Saquon jersey?
Oh, I can imagine it. No, oh my goodness, yeah, I can imagine it. The amount of shit we'd be talking playing like Fortnite or F1, whatever the fuck we'll be playing on our PS5 or PC or whatever. We'll be talking mad shit about that for years, I think. So, Ian, fuck it. Why don't we do that to him? Let's do it. I mean, I've been friends with, I was listening to that episode with.
It's our money. All I said was that you win a jersey, not that you get the correct one.
I was listening to that episode between when Courtney came on the fantasy pod. That's definitely me and Jack, because me and Jack have known each other since primary school. And look, we're like he was like the first guy I talked to NFL with. He was probably the only guy I talked to about the NFL for about 10 years or something. So major shout out Jack. He was biggest part of my childhood in terms of my NFL watching. And you know, he helped me find Pastry Press, even though I've been trying to convince him to come back every single year for the last few years. So Jack, if you're listening, man, come back to Pastry Press as well, man. I'm just saying, the offer's there.
Also, speaking of Courtney Ward, if anyone feels like giving the Sydney Kings shit, he runs the socials. So if you want to throw any gifts or hit comments at the Sydney Kings online, Courtney Ward's going to get that. So shout out, mate.
Might be a good time to see if you can get a really cheap Kings championship jersey, you know, because he'll be trying to get rid of them.
Yeah. Oh, hang on. I'll just Google that right now.
Yeah. Sydney Kings 25 champions. See if you can pick up a cheap one from him.
It's gone Africa.
The amount of times I've called that guy Courtney Walsh, by the way. Oh my god.
That's all right. I still get Nick's name wrong.
Maybe send him a call.
But have you seen Courtney Walsh?
Portland Sutton, Courtney Walsh. Yeah, who knows who he is?
Yeah. No, Courtney Walsh is only a 50-something-year-old West Indian fast bowler. So, you know, nothing.
I literally I was the biggest West Indies fan when I was a kid. I fucking love those. Like Curtly
Back when they were
Ambrose,
good.
the mix between
Yeah.
Courtney Walsh and Curtly Ambrose. I could never get the names right. Like they sound so similar, even though they didn't.
Yeah.
Look, like one was beefier, and one was a fucking Snoop Dogg lookalike. But like they the best like fast bowling tandem in the world. That was back when they used to do the Tri Series every January.
Yes.
And the West Indies would come over, and it was so fucking awesome. Like I was living in New Zealand. I was like born there, so I was still there, and I would legitimately go for the West Indies against New Zealand because I fucking loved them so much. So,
Yeah.
yeah, good shout out. Even though we're in a Super Bowl podcast about fucking gridiron, but let's talk more cricket.
I'm gonna tag at Courtney
Absolutely.
Walsh in everything we post about this, by the
We've
way.
talked
See if he gets on.
In the last 2 minutes, we talked about the Sydney Kings, the West Indies cricket team. It's great.
Hey! Look
Yeah.
out!
Ambrose.
Look out for the AGN Sportscast during the off season.
Oh,
It's just be us. Just
Get around.
I just hit the tagline too there, Matty. By the way.
yeah. I feel like that's what we need to do. Sportscast.
But
I feel like
everything
that's it.
NBA, please. Everything NBA.
Yeah. No NBA. But
We just
I
have
think that's a great opportunity
Fuck
for
the
us to
NBA.
tackle Aussie
Just about
sports.
Luca.
Aussie. Just talk all other sports. I can talk F1 to somebody so they don't listen. You know,
I'll take some F1 talk.
Supercars
Yeah, let's
starts.
go F1.
Supercars starts next weekend. I'm going to Sydney for that. You know, so it's but we can talk cricket. I don't know. We can talk everything.
I don't know.
Anyway,
I feel like we should tackle some Aussie sport. Why not?
Maddie, I feel like we should tackle some Aussie fantasy.
Yeah.
Still hasn't happened.
Just like any fantasy show, we are off on a fucking 15-minute tangent to come back to
It
the
happens, mate.
The train is off the rails and flipped over 8,000 times.
It happens.
I'm
And what I
still
like about
looking
this,
for a
I'm not
Sydney
even
Kings jersey,
technically
by the way.
hosting this, so this is kind of your train wreck, Ian.
I know. Blame me.
Oh.
I'm not really hosting this. Okay, so long story short, Taylor won. Done. Thanks, guys.
I'm happy with that. That's all I need to know.
Okay, so
But how much?
I'll extrapolate. Let's stroke the guy's ego. We picked. There was 6 of us trying to pick a 3-round draft. So that's 18 fantasy assets in one game. And I rigged a draft order to try and, mix it up a bit. I knew that Manjot was feeling cute, so I tried to make it a bit hard for him.
Thanks to Isaac for not coming on last week too, by the way, because 7 guys.
Thank you,
That would have been
Isaac.
21. That would have
7
been
guys, 21
7.
players would have just been
Wait a minute.
insane.
Bag of dicks. We, as a group, found, listen to this, 212 fantasy points.
Yeah, the
I
boys.
mean, come on. Come on.
Hey, who
Amazing.
knows
Let's go.
football? We know football.
That's fucking amazing from 2 teams. And the way it breaks down, okay, so a bit of a tough day out. Nick
Jake Elliott only had half of that.
Yeah, we'll get to some breakdown. You just back in your box. Nick had a bit of a tough day. Rolls up 20 points. Nick, mate, I feel like giving you second pick in the draft wasn't good enough. I should have done you better.
No, well, the strategy, of course, everything went to shit because I thought the Chiefs were having a big day. So it was the exact fucking opposite. So that's how the score reflected across the board.
Sorry, I gave you third pick. That's right. The 2 Eagles went, and then you got Patrick Mahomes. He rolls up almost all your score. I'm so sorry about that. Mahomes was the 5th highest score on the day at 16.8 points, and then just found it hard to get points from anywhere else. Manjot, you wind up with 28.9 points. And, mate, that's good enough for second last. Congratulations, mate.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it. Came into week second, finished second last there. Shit hit the fan, as they like to say. I mean, like fucking Devontae Smith, thank you for carrying me to a respectable score there with that long touchdown. Travis Kelce, big fuck you, because that was a dog shit
I told
performance,
you!
man. You need to retire. Bro.
I think
Whoa,
I was
whoa.
last
Kelsey,
week, mate.
Whoa,
Yeah.
man. Jot that one
Jeez.
get you unblocked on Instagram, pal.
I'm sorry.
They'll double
Taylor
down now.
Swift is
Facebook,
blocked him.
TikTok, X, it's all gone now. You're all gone.
Yeah.
Manjot's
Come
going to go
on,
back.
King.
Come from the top rope.
Manjot's going to go
Sonic-
back to the
Sonic-
dark ages of social media. He'll
Oh, man.
be bringing back MySpace to try and do some kind of social media in the NFL.
Look out for Manjot's newsletter.
He'd be writing a blog in no time.
The people's elbow from Isaac. Oh my god.
Yeah.
It's
It's
a
coming. The
tough,
blog's coming.
it's a tough week for Manjot. He gets almost all Devonna Smith's points on one play, and then that's 16.9 from Devonna Smith is a big percentage of the score for Manjot. But it was his first round pick. Travis Kelce did not excite, but he got a plenty out of Devonta Smith on the turn. Mate, I see Ian comes in the next spot. You ended up with the first pick, and mate, you got a ton of points out of Jalen Hurts. 29 of your 33 points from Jalen Hurts. So I mean, more can you do? Really good start. Just it's tough when you got to pick last in the next 2 rounds.
Yeah, and like Hollywood Brown and Noah Gray might have actually got some points if the Chiefs could actually get some points, or some yards, even just yards. I think just yards. I really thought
Hollywood didn't do you any favors, mate. I think he had 5 targets, caught 2 balls.
Yeah, and I really thought Hollywood might have done something, but I really needed it to be more of a game by the Chiefs for that to have come about. But yeah, and same with Noah Gray, because I really didn't think Travis Kelce was going to do that well. I know I picked him last, and it's been a bit of a running joke with me picking Noah Gray lately as a tight ends guy. But he's a great second. He's a great tight end too for Kansas City, and he'll end up being a 1 once the big boy decides he's going to retire.
Yeah, well, I feel like he retired right after the championship game because he did fuck all on the day. Manjot can tell you about that. I roll in the bronze position here, 35 points, mainly on the strength of the Eagles defense, who I picked up in the second round. And, mate, they had 23 points at halftime, and only because of junk time, they ended up going backwards in points, but they still wound up with 20 points, which is kind of amazing given they ate all those Chiefs touchdowns in the second half. When you give up 3 touchdowns but still score 20 fantasy points, not bad. But yeah, I just kind of had a tough time. I'd taken AJ Brown in my first round, and Kareem Hunt clearly didn't see the field at all. Hey, Brad. No, Brad. 42 points for Brad, which is pretty solid. And he had a pretty good day out from Xavier Worthy. Don't know if anyone's heard of Xavier Worthy. In the first half, no one had. In the second half, he was the only thing happening for the Chiefs. He goes 8 for 8, 157 yards, 2 touchdowns, 35.7 fantasy points.
As a rookie in the Super Bowl.
Xavier Worthy outscored my fantasy team last week and everyone below me. He would have came third, tied for third, Xavier Worthy. So Brad gets 5 points out of everybody else. So this is the problem with the Super Bowl. He must have
won with that score.
Hey, what was that?
He must have won with that amazing score.
42.6. You'd think that's pretty good. He goes into the week with the lead, and then Taylor scores 51, and that's enough. Yeah. I thought you scored 49.5, Taylor. You wound up with 51.5. Can you tell me really quickly what the backstory is here and why I was wrong? Because this, in fact, it impacts a lot, and I think you'll tell the story better than I will.
I'll let DJ Khaled tell the story. I don't know how that comes through in a podcast, but all I do is win, no matter what, Matty. It's been a great tipping and great fantasy run. I got last in the first week, so I was gladly basically acting like fantasy was dead to me, and I was basically saying I was never going to be on the fantasy show ever again, and then all of a sudden I turned around and won. So it's funny how that can be really fickle, and I'm really, really happy to take home the win, mate. But in all seriousness, I know I'm being a dick and a wanker, and that's just what I do best. But honestly, it was a really, really fun thing to do. I absolutely love doing this. Like me and you, going back in the day, like you and I literally did like a fantasy run ourselves, like 4 years ago, and then we had Angel come in, which was even funner having 3 people, and it's like gotten bigger and bigger every year. We've had more people do it every year, and it's been so fun. So absolutely stoked to win it, but in the end, like whether I did won it or not, it still would have been so fun, and I've been absolutely glad to hear everyone getting into the fantasy side of it, but also obviously in the tipping and the real NFL side of it as well. It's been so fun. And
I mean, how fun is it when you go and rack up all these points thanks to Jalen Hurts, Sorry, no, you had Saquon, didn't you? Saquon, and then Jake Elliott. So those two combined for like 40 points. Saquon didn't have the big touch with like 85 total yards plus the receptions. Then you get Jake Elliott had 4 extra points, which the way we were scoring was 2 points for an extra point, not 1, 2. Plus, then the field goals. Man, he kept on kicking field goals, and one of them, thanks to penalties, got pushed out to a 50 yards.
Yeah, I did notice that it went from exactly 45 to 50, and I was like, yes, here we go.
Fucking come on!
Is he going to miss this now because it's been pushed back?
Oh, no. Like was he drilled it? It was like a
what
dart.
was hilarious was he drilled about 3 others that got called back from penalties because every single time, and the penalty was real late, and he'd kick it, and every time we drilled it like down the middle. So he kicked about 10 field goals, I think, during the game. So it was actually an amazing watch. And I was letting everyone around me know that I had Jake Elliott in a random fantasy football game for Super Bowl that no one else gave a rat's ass about except us on the podcast. So it was great.
Yeah.
I love how, as the game wears on too, you're like throwing up the love heart eyes for things that are happening in the most irrelevant situation because we play fantasy.
Yeah.
And one of them was a late 2-point conversion.
Yeah.
And like I had already scored pretty much everything that happened in the game at that point, and I was trying to finalize things. And you come to me later and you said, Matty, I think you've misscored something here. Do you want to tell that story?
Yeah, it's so funny because it brought up, I had DeAndre Hopkins as my third player, and he obviously had the touchdown. Didn't have many yards. He was like 2 for 18 or something. And I looked at it and I went, all right, 9.8 is what he would have if he didn't have the 2-point conversion. And I wondered whether when you were doing the scoring, because honestly, if I was doing the scoring, I wouldn't be fucking looking at 2-point conversions either. I was like, I'll have a look just to see if it comes up as 9.8 because that's exactly what his stats say. But I was like, I knew he had the 2-point conversion. And when you brought up the score, I was only like, 0.46 or something behind Brad in terms of aggregate. And I noticed that the 2-point conversion for DeAndre Hopkins wasn't on there. So he should have been 11.8 instead of 9.8. I, of course, being me, pointed that out. And then all of a sudden, I realized that the 0.5 per game aggregate would all of a sudden make me the 0.04 winner in aggregate. So, yes, well done by me for noticing it, I guess. But, but good on me for being one of those wankers that actually cared enough to actually bring it up. So good for me.
Very good for you. Because I'd originally scored it out, and this was such a pain in the ass because I have not done a good job tracking this through the playoffs in a way that would make it easy for me on the last day.
That's the thing, right? Like, if you went back through that, Brad might have won, like Nick might have won. I don't know. We may have actually fucked up about just stuff.
No, we said this earlier in the year too. I don't know if it was just amongst ourselves either, or if we said it on a podcast. Someone in the fantasy world with these big apps like Sleeper or something needs to take this on. You need like a playoff game, fantasy game where you can just, maybe you can draft at the start of a fantasy, at the start of a playoff run, draft a team, or you can just do some kind of survivor series there, or you could do like week to week like we've been doing. Take it on. Make these games just be amazing. So,
because otherwise you get Matty Mats.
Otherwise you get Matty Mats. So.
And I mean, it's not the most horrible thing, but really quickly, the final scores in this, what we did, because Isaac was in for a week and we weren't sure how many weeks we are going to have everybody in. So we thought, let's just use the table to score how many competition points you're getting on average per week that you play. That way, that bit is always fair, right? The aggregate bit, it gets harder the further you go into it because there's less points on offer every week as there's less teams. So that's the disadvantage of not being in every week.
Yep.
But there's no real way to equalize that, right? So with that said, Taylor came in last in the first week, and as things got more sparse, he worked his way up, and he still managed to do a great job of doing this, where he and Brad finished with the same amount of total competition points, which means if you break that down to how many weeks they were in, because they were in every week, they both wound up with an average of 4.7 competition points every week. But that means your tiebreaker's got to be, well, how many points did you score across your 4 weeks of fantasy teams, and then divide that by 4. And it means that Taylor literally won by 4 passing yards. He scored 67.46 fantasy points per week. Brad scores 67.42 fantasy points per week. So that's 1 passing yard per week. That is the margin of how close this starts of the week in the playoffs was. Third place, Manjot actually wins the aggregate. He averaged 69.03. Gronk is smiling somewhere, points per week, but didn't get enough competition point wins. So he gets clearly third. Then there's a bit of a drop off. Ian and I, we wind up with 3 points a week, and we both average around the 50 points. Nick, a few more points than us, had a couple of rough weeks in scoring after the early weeks, and just didn't have as many competition points. And Isaac, you're only in for 1 week. So with your 54 points, you actually put yourself in about the same sort of range of scoring per week as myself and Ian and Nick. But just because of the week you're in, there was more of us, and it means coming sort of middle of the pack meant less points. But that's how it all washed up. Taylor fucking wins the thing by a passing yard per week. Isn't that just the most atrocious thing you ever heard?
Oh, that's crazy indeed. Oh man,
Matty, do you know what I love about this graphic though, and about this table? Is the 2 guys at the top, Taylor and Brad. Absolute assets to everything we do, AGN. Look at them. Both of them can do NFL analysts. They can both clearly be fantasy analysts. Brad tells us he's shit at fantasy, but he's been doing it since like 1893. So, you know,
he's very underrated, that one.
Brad's been doing fantasy since he used to have to chisel guys' scores on a piece of rock and put it up on a tree for everybody to check out at the end of each day. So, you know, like, he's been doing it that long, and he can clearly still pick him, and he still knows what he's doing. So look at Brad go. Look at Taylor go.
These 2 guys, how good is it to be on shows where these two guys, we host them, and then we get to introduce these 2 fucking craniums of football.
They make us look good.
Ride their coattails.
That's right. That's what I was getting too many. They just make us look good. You and I.
So Tay, tomorrow you're getting this. This is the starts of the week playoff trophy. I've mailed one to Brad already, and this one's for you, mate. But you've got a trophy for me, so it'll be a nice switcheroo.
Yeah.
We're gonna make sure we get a picture of Brad with that trophy. By the way,
yeah.
We will eventually.
I'll get him to take a selfie, but he doesn't know what that is. So I'll get one of his kids to take a photo.
We will catch up together eventually. At the absolute worst, I think we're all going to try and get to that game, the Rams game next year. So
100%.
Absolutely,
100%,
100%. At an absolute worst, but we need to get yeah. Like I said last week, it's all of us in one massive Airbnb. You know, so
what could go wrong?
What could possibly go wrong?
Could possibly go wrong.
14-bedroom chalet somewhere.
What could
speaking
go wrong?
Speaking of moving forward, that's it for this season, really. So we move forward into an off season, and then into the 2025 official NFL season and everything that goes with that. Matty, we're all taking a bit of a break for a few weeks, so there might be a week or two where there might be a bit of nothing coming out on the AGN feed, or there could be, if we all get a bit bored, a bit of us just coming on and talking random sports. You never know. So there's that excitement for everybody to come, just watching out for that, whatever happens on the feed. Something might randomly pop up one day on your podcast app that there's an AGN show, and you won't know what it's about until you click play. So make sure you do. Matty, fantasy-wise, what are you boys doing leading through the off-season? Where do you start again?
This is perfect because you have to subscribe to make sure that you get when the episodes come up. Okay, so there will definitely be some I don't know, do we call it shit posting? Maybe, I don't know, but there'll be some collaboration stuff between now and when things get serious NFL again. Hey, Tay, you and I, we tend to get together and talk free agents, and that generally happens around March. And we love to talk a good free agent trade, a free agent move, and what impact we think that's going to have on fantasy, mate. We've done some of those shows multiple times too, because someone over here's forgotten to hit record on podcasts. We've had to pretend.
No, I've never done that before, Matty, ever.
This is
So
Oh,
Greatest show
You're
in
ba-
the world. No, this is just a tribute.
So
So Tay and I will be back for that, and then generally what we also do is we look to talk with often when we can. Dynasty Mark will talk to us through the preseason too about what rookies we need to keep a bit of an eye on for guys playing some Dynasty, but mainly because we are a heavily redraft focused podcast, just to be aware of who the guys that you're going to hear all through ESPN and all the hype around them. Not all of them are fantasy relevant.
No.
So we just tend to focus in on who's actually going to be fantasy relevant, Dynasty Mark. And then we talk about how they'll fit into a roster and where you should expect to be drafting them. And then, of course, we come back through once the second wave of free agency is done and we start getting into OTAs and mini camp, and we start talking a bit more seriously then. And really it is July. July, we come back and we start talking positions. August, we do the great divisional shows. And then all of a sudden it's September and we're back. So that's what we're looking at in this offseason. And, mate, somehow, Tay, we've made it through 5 seasons. You and I worked together heavily for 4 of those seasons, and we're not cancelled.
No, we haven't killed each other yet.
you don't hate each other. That's the most amazing thing ever.
No, we
Yeah.
do.
There has been no throat ripping or anything like that, which has been unbelievable. But yeah, I remember I think it was around June when we talked about rookies last year, and 2 of my big ones were Jalen McMillan. I don't know if you've heard of me bring him up, and I haven't, jizzed about him at all. But he was one of the ones I brought up in about June last year. And Malik Washington was another guy that I was very high on, and I really, really liked sort of bringing up some sleepers like that. So there's some guys we sort of talk about, early in the year, the guys we really like in the rookie season for Dynasty or just generally for NFL. But yeah, like you said, my big plan for this year is I really, really felt like what we did in terms of having a new voice on every single week was a really big hit. Like we got a lot of, different people involved and like whether it was in like leagues we had or like people just knowing of people that had an interest in either NFL or fantasy or both. It was a really big hit this year. My hope is that this year that we can get it so big that we're actually bringing on 2 guests at a time, because obviously it's going to be hard, because we had a guest on every single week for the 17 weeks during the year. We're at a point where we could possibly bring on 2 at once. If we can get 34 during the 17 weeks, we could actually bring on 2 at once. So, and then we've obviously got our starts of the week that we do during our podcast season that I've already messaged Maddie about a very special wrinkle. I'm already thinking about adding to that. So we can stay tuned for that. But in general, I can't wait to see what happens to the fantasy show moving forward, because me and Maddie absolutely love doing it. Everyone that's been on seemed to have a great time, and I can't wait to see that go from strength to strength, as well as obviously the Aussie Gridiron Network in general.
Because just quickly, guys, around the room, you've all been on the fantasy show this year. How many of you don't want to come on next year? You all do.
I want to come on more of them. That's what I've been trying to do.
This is the point. Tay's like, we need to bring some new faces on who haven't had their opportunity yet. But everyone who's had a crack wants another crack. So that's where we're at.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. It's like everyone that was on last year is probably going to come on again. That's honestly, anyone we bring on is just going to be an addition to last year. And like I said, it's probably going to be a point where we're just going to have 2 on at once.
So it's going to be Taylor versus Maddie versus the returning guest versus the world.
Yeah. That's okay. We're gonna have to work a new scoreboard for starts of the week, but I can't wait. I'm always thinking that shit.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't wait for that either. G'day, Gridiron Wise. We will have a couple of weeks break for sure. And then we will be back into it sometime in March, first or second week, where we'll start talking mock drafts, have a look at some of the guys. Of course, we talked a little bit about, some people would have heard a little bit about some college stuff this year. Brad loves college. Nick and I were trying to get into it a bit more. So we're going to dive a little bit into some of the guys you'll hear in terms of mock drafts. We might have a look at some mock drafts that are out there in the world from some of the bigger NFL guys and see where they're at as we go forward, because of course the draft is at the end of April, so we'll be bringing you some random content on that stuff for sure as we go through and get towards draft. There is of course free agency before that, so we will have to have a big show on free agency. Manjot and I have usually done that the last couple of years, but with Brad, Nick and Isaac now, we will definitely be talking a lot more stuff here and there. Might be one of us, 2 of us, 3 of us, all 4 of us will all be around yeah, so we'll be talking some various stuff as we move into free agency, in the draft, and then from then on forward, essentially, you'll hear the whole slate of stuff again, as we do most seasons, and I can't wait to do all of it, absolutely all of it again. It is draining by the time we get to this end of the season, but it's definitely enjoyable to do it with the guys, and everything, I think, from the draft to free agency to all of our divisional previews, all of that is amazing. We're going to probably have a better go at our best team drafts this year, so hopefully we get Isaac in for those as well, which means that we'll have all four of us picking best team drafts, and you'll hear that sort of stuff. And of course, the big one, early season, Manjot, we have to get Manjot on for this one because it's all about history. We will be early, sort of somewhere around end of May, maybe middle of May. We might do it earlier this year because it was a bit rushed last year. The 2021 draft class review, where we go back to a draft class from 3 years ago and 4 years ago, and we review that draft class because we all firmly believe that the worth of a player isn't judged off when people trying to review the draft class 3 months after it's been picked. It's what does that player look like when they're getting towards that first contract, when they're getting towards that next contract, that big contract, that first big one. So we're up to 2021 draft class, Manjot. That's going to be one hell of a chat, that one, isn't it?
Oh, there's so much juice in that one that no, I don't even want to talk about it right now because there's too much going on there. No spoilers.
No spoilers, but it is massive. Both in busts and hits, basically. There's guys everywhere there that will be just amazing to talk about, to be honest. So that's going to be early season. So apart from that, though, a couple of weeks break. You might hear some random sports stuff here and there. And if you do want to hear it, hit us up on all of the socials. You can find everything at the AGN Mothership, the home of all things Aussie Gridiron Network. That is our linktree /Aussie Gridiron Network. You'll find a link to every show absolutely ever of Aussie NFL Fantasy Show, G'day Gridiron, Manjot's Pastry Press stuff, Dynasty Marks stuff, the things that he puts out and he has put out in previous years, all of that is there. Social links to all of our stuff, absolutely all the stuff, including Manjot's YouTube for Pastry Press, which you will find Aussie Gridiron Today stuff on, which we might have some more of during this NFL off-season as well. There might be some bits and pieces Manjot puts out. I know he's definitely got some stuff to put out, don't you, mate, on YouTube very soon.
Yeah, just real quickly. I mean, you guys, you've been really, firstly, just as a listener to see more than a podcaster, just been really enjoying all the great shit you all been doing. Bring on guests for fantasy every week. The 2 new guys on GG. And then all the guys who've been returning and been keeping the network going during this time. It's been incredible. Having old guys, new guys, this sort of thing. It's just been incredible. Just added to our network. Just been incredible. On the Pastry Press side of things, I think really I've got the Pastry Performer Awards. I was meant to release it during the Super Bowl bye week, but I decided my brain just decided not to record it until late in that week. So I was like, all right, I'm going to release it when the boys are taking a break. So you still have some content there. Just the Pastry Performer Awards a couple weeks late. And after that, I'm just looking to general NFL history on the channel, getting Aussie Gridiron Today back up and running as well. There's going to be different sorts of content. Yeah, I'm not really as planned as you guys. I think it's just all spontaneous on that channel. That's why I'm going to plan it for this year.
The state associations have been so positive about it, and we're going to have content from different state associations. There's been huge interest from WA. We know the SA is in. I've had some really positive conversation from New South Wales this week, Manjot, that you don't know about yet. So it's happening. It's happening.
Yeah, no, I think definitely one of the things with Aussie Grind today, I'll just put in as well. Like, definitely go and get some interviews with a few people, try and get a few people on the podcast and stuff. Already got like a couple guys saying yes, so that's pretty good. Try and get as well around that June to July period when teams are recruiting as well. I'm going to try and get as many local American football teams onto a show and just do a whole state-by-state sort of thing during June and July just to get recruitment up as well for local American football, get the awareness and that up as well. So in terms of that, like, I've just, look, there's a lot going on, NFL and local ground on Patient Press. Of course, the short form's going to keep coming out like every day. I mean, thank you as well. Just want to say big numbers this year. Thank you to, we got over 1,000 Facebook followers now, nearly 750 YouTube at time of recording, 3,800 Instagram, of course, my home. So shout out to everyone as well who's been following us on socials across all the board here on the Aussie Grind Network. And look, there's going to be bigger and better things next year. Got a lot of plans. And look, boys, let's get it going.
Let's get going.
Yeah, let's get it going. Absolutely. So you find all that on our Linktree. Again, Linktree/Aussie Gridiron Network. You'll find absolutely everything in there. Boys, it has been an absolute pleasure doing this with you for the last few weeks. Everybody, including Brad as well, who isn't here with us tonight. But absolute pleasure.
Brad.
Absolute pleasure doing podcast with you boys, Nick, Isaac, and Brad this year, and being on the fantasy show and just talking shit with you boys in chat groups and just having fun there and just being mates. So that's what it's about. It is just talking shit about football with your mates, and that's what we love to do here. So thank you very much to everybody. You want to go around and say goodbye just one last time, Maddie?
Hooroo.
Isaac?
Duval.
Manjot?
Thank you, everyone.
Nick?
Bring on 2025.
Taylor?
I'll just say, I normally say something wankerish here. I just want to say one thing before I sort of sign off. For anyone who's out there who's a bit worried about coming onto a podcast and is sitting there going, I'm a little bit worried about what I would say or whatever. Isaac literally came on last second onto our fantasy show last year. Now all of a sudden he not only is coming onto fantasy podcasts, he's jumping onto G'day Gridiron. He's had an absolute massive impact on our network this year, and I want to say massive thank you to Isaac. He's been amazing, and like I said, it's a proof of concept of if you just want to come on here and chat shit, we're not people who expect a ridiculous amount of you when you come on. We just want to hear you talk about your different way of thinking, whether it's fantasy, whether it's real NFL, whatever. I just want to say a massive thank you for him to come on because he's added so much. And honestly, anyone that's listening that's thinking about doing it, please do, because he's proof of concept of what it can become if you just sort of get out there and do it. So thank you to Isaac and thank you to everyone listening. What a year it's been. Can't wait for next year.
Absolutely. Well said, mate. And love you all. See ya.
Thanks.
The G'day Gridiron podcast is brought to you by the Aussie Gridiron Network, a network of Australian podcasts bringing the fun and a little bit of the Aussie larrikin to the NFL and fantasy football. Check out our other amazing productions. Australia's #1 fantasy football podcast, the Aussie NFL Fantasy Show. Everything about the local game at Aussie Gridiron today. Manjot's Pastry Press on Instagram and YouTube, and Australia's very own Dynasty podcast, No Huddle Dynasty. Find links to everything at Linktree /Aussie Gridiron Network.